I tried tweeting as idea generation. So, in an ideal world, you would have two different outlets. You would have something that is short and something that is long. Now, something that is short and something that is long doesn't make that much sense, but now, maybe let me explain it to you. Short things are tweets, for example. Long things would be blog posts. Short things are short videos for Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. And long videos would be what you would know as a YouTube video. It also could be a documentary and so on and so forth. You could also make an argument that there are actually more formats. Short, medium, long. Of course, there could be an infinite amount of formats and length, but these formats are defined by length, and since it is only two, I think it is reasonable, because it's very simplistic. Now, this strategy I am currently describing of using tweets for shorts is something that was kind of recommended by me by someone on the internet. Not personally by me, not personally by him, but his name is Alex Hormozy, and he said he uses tweets in order to test an idea and then maybe turn it into a video. So therefore I thought, what if instead of collecting the ideas I already had, usually in a task manager, I just tweet them. So now here is what I found. First of all, if you do this, you might have to be prepared that Twitter slightly changes what you put out. So as you are on Twitter, you're influenced by Twitter's design, and therefore the tweets you actually want to make are then maybe influenced and shortened and maybe also heightened because there is something else that's happening. The influence is not only, of course there is the influence, but one subset of this influence or one sub-hierarchical structure of this influence would be that you are actually not really just writing down your ideas anymore, but you are already appealing to an audience. Of course, if you just normally record your ideas, you also try to appeal to an audience. You have it in the back of your mind that if you have an idea and you would not be able to post this idea because maybe this would not be something that is beneficial for you over the long term, then you already are kind of censoring what you otherwise would put out. But if you already put it out to Twitter, there is this thing that is happening because Twitter is also kind of a social media platform where actually people can also respond to you. This means if you write a tweet about something, for example, if this would be a tweet, I might have put, or at least I would have had the option to put Alex Hormozy in the tweet itself by just linking him. So there is the influence on the one side, but there is also this other factor that slightly manipulates you, you could say. Of course, manipulating and influence are kind of similar, but I would say these two are happening. So first of all, there's the influence of Twitter that slightly changes what you actually record as an idea, because you put out things, and therefore it's not just the test of the idea, but also you are influenced and manipulated kind of by the platform. Then third of all is what I call pollution. So if you are on Twitter and you tweet directly over Twitter, of course there are third-party apps and services that let you tweet. I actually tried one of these called Buffer before on one account, and this seemed to work quite well. And another benefit is that you can simultaneously, ideally, post to multiple platforms. In my case, 3: Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And this would be also something. But for now, I just tried to just post to Twitter, even though, of course, if you can 3 times your engagement, this might be something that is worth considering. But what is also not worth considering, but then necessary considering, is that you have to adjust the media. So on Instagram, for example, what you can post are 4x5, 5x4. You can also post landscape now, 16x9, and square. That's about it. Of course, there are kind of sometimes maybe other formats as well, but that's the most thing. On Twitter, what I found is very convenient is that you can just take a screenshot, usually from my notebook, and this screenshot can look like this, it can look like this, and you can just insert it into the tweet. It doesn't matter what format it is, but if you then work with something like Buffer, then you again have, and you want to simultaneously post it to Instagram and Facebook. On Facebook, again, it doesn't really matter what format it is. It just puts it at the end of your text. Similar on Twitter. But on Instagram, again, you have to think about the formatting, because all images on one post have to be the same format. So therefore, if you just have random screenshots, you cannot just put them on Instagram. So therefore, maybe only posting to Facebook and Twitter would be an option to circumvent this, to bypass this effect that you would have to adjust your pictures for Instagram. I actually tried this, and I found myself then adjusting the pictures, which takes a lot of your drive away, because it just everything gets lost in the details of making this one post. And then you maybe have to store the pictures, because you have maybe the original picture and then the adjusted one, and so on and so forth. What I found to be the fastest in terms of actually turning something into a tweet is just to take a screenshot. I don't record the screenshot, but the screenshot is automatically recorded within Windows. This means whenever I take a screenshot with the built-in tool, Windows just stores the file, which is nice. So I can access it at any point in time, but I don't store it specifically as a tweet. I don't make a folder with this is this tweet and the next tweet, because this managing files and managing the structure of files and so on and so forth, and also naming them maybe, is just a lot of work. So therefore, I think it doesn't make sense. For this reason, I think Twitter is somewhat unique, similar to Facebook, at least compared to Instagram, because it allows you to just write something up. Another benefit of writing on Twitter compared to Instagram and Facebook. So Instagram and Facebook are owned by the same company, as you might have noticed already. And these two can be accessed via something called Meta Business Suite. And this is basically a software tool, web platform, but it also has an app that allows you to access both. And therefore you can write something and then attach images. And you can even adjust the images online, or in the app, I think also, to fit both platforms. And what I found is this: there is a preview that is constantly rendering of the text, what it will look like on one of these platforms. And this makes the writing laggy. And therefore you cannot write on the internet, but you would actually have to prepare the post somewhere else. On the internet maybe, but you just cannot write in there because it's just laggy. Maybe it's my connection, but I guess it's not, because on Twitter I can just write. And that's nice. Same is true for Medium, for example, compared to something like WordPress, where usually I found that there is just a certain lag. Maybe because of the 15 plugins I have installed, probably, maybe, but maybe also Medium is just faster in general compared to WordPress, for example. That's why I switched my main blogs, the long version of the text thing, or the posts that are not videos and also not audio. I switched them to Medium currently, or I am switching them, but I'm almost finished with switching them. For this reason, the Meta Business Suite that would allow you to post to Instagram and Facebook is not that useful. So Buffer would be the best solution for posting to 3 platforms at the same time. But if you also additionally want to post to Twitter, I actually haven't tried if you also can link people and so on. What is also useful on Twitter is that you have functions on Twitter, and these functions are quite useful. For example, if you write one of your tweets, like this here, and then it's your tweet. And then, because Twitter is something like more like a phenomenon even, you can also screenshot this tweet and then maybe post it to Instagram. That's actually what many people do if they want to post text to Instagram, because it's like, this person, this account said this. It's basically a good format already. And also Twitter displays this either in total black or in total white, depending on your dark mode settings. And this allows you to just screenshot things for Instagram, because on Instagram, nobody reads the captions, or at least people probably are more likely to look at what you read if you have a picture inserted there. Also, the question is, if you have a text and you don't have a picture that represents the text, do you actually want just random pictures there or just screenshots? Because the text is the main thing of a text post, you could say. And on Instagram, the focus is more on the picture. Therefore, there is also kind of this slight trade-off every time you choose a picture on Instagram, because that's what people see first. So this would also be something. You can take a screenshot from this if you are on your phone. What I, for myself at least, have decided not to do. I decided to avoid almost all social media on my phone, apart from YouTube, what you also would call a social media, but YouTube is on my phone. not the app, but on the browser. And I'm not logged in, but that's another story. So what I found is that there are useful functions on Twitter, like quoting your tweet. So if this is your tweet, what you can very easily do is you can write something, and due to the character limitation, you can write something up and then just quote it. So this means you write something and then again you write something about this. And this is a very useful function, because if someone says something, then you just can quote him, and it's a quote. And if somebody writes something on Twitter, these are actually quotes you can use. So otherwise you would have to look up interviews and so on and so forth. Maybe an interview that is not already a quote yet, and you would have to transcribe it. But if it is already on Twitter, you can just quote the person, and you also can screenshot it, because that's something the person has said and is probably still comfortable with quoting, at least to some extent, because they haven't deleted the tweet. So for this reason, I think this is a fairly useful function, because you can actually state something, you can say something. And also, if Steven Pinker, for example, says something, I can say something about this, but then the reference is just there. And this embedded functionality of interactiveness between users and accounts is something that is quite useful, I think. It would be also useful for other platforms. TikTok also has something similar, where you can reply to a video, and that's something that kind of maybe is a reason Twitter is, not Twitter, but TikTok is as these, or at least has some benefits compared to other platforms, apart from also downsides it has compared to other platforms. But this the retweeting, so there is the quote where you can basically insert the other thing, and you can also retweet things. If you are not familiar with Twitter, you can basically say, oh, this is interesting, and then you just have this on your feed, basically. And without you adding commentary, basically. That's the same thing without commentary. And then, of course, you can also comment something below, which people might see, might not see. And these are useful functions, because they allow a bi-directional link between two accounts. Whereas YouTube, for example, now also does this more and more, because YouTube also introduced handles, but on Twitter, this has been kind of embedded in the functionality. It's like, this person said this, and now I am reacting to this person. On YouTube, for example, usually what happens is that Alex Hormozi said this, and this is then the title, but there is no link between those two accounts. Alex Hormozi only finds out if someone sends him the video, but he is not directly linked. And that's the bi-directional functionality or working of Twitter is something that is, I think, kind of useful. Now, the fifth part. The main reason I actually would record these short ideas is to turn them into videos. Why? Because video is just much more engaging. If I, for example, have a short tweet where I have an idea, I can now turn this idea, because it's not an idea that I have too many thoughts about, therefore it would not qualify in my eyes for something that is long. Because if it would be long, this could be a blog post, this could be a long video on YouTube, but for an idea to qualify for long, what it has to be is that what it has to qualify, or the qualifying criteria, you could say, are that I have more thoughts about this topic. But if it's only something that is very short, I can turn it into a tweet. So what I've come up now with for myself is that if something is short, then I tweet it, or I prepare the tweet and then tweet it. And if something is long, then I want to have text, and maybe it benefits from visuals, and I don't want to edit a video where I add the visuals, because that's very time intensive. Then I just tweet it. Of course, I could alter this in the future to tweeting on Instagram and on Facebook and on Twitter, and so using buffer again or using meta again in order to avoid the bad negative side effects of Twitter. But what I've come up with is a very simple solution. If it's short, then I tweet it. If it's long, then I turn it into a blog post. And if I now have a short on Twitter, a tweet, or a long on Medium, then I can turn both again into videos. Of course, turning something into video requires some setup. Of course, either you can remember the thing, you can read the thing or one line and then record the line. You can also use a teleprompter. What I also have experimented with is reading something on there and then just looking back to the camera, similar to how you would read in a public setting, where people just read there and then they look into to the audience again. So this will also be something that is useful. The question now is, how do you turn tweets into something that is then again a video? And the answer is, I haven't found any good solution yet. Why? Because I ideally now would have the feed, but I cannot really, or I don't really allow myself to have the feed now of my Twitter on my phone. And also there are constantly suggestions for other tweets. Elon Musk tweeted this, or this person tweeted this, or this is trending in Germany, or this is trending in England, I don't know. But the thing is that I haven't found, so basically here's what I need. I have different channels for different interests of mine, because audience separation. Now, what happens if I have all of these different accounts? What I would ideally have is one account where I just follow all of the other accounts, and then I would have all the tweets combined in one timeline. Maybe there is a third-party app or something like this that would then allow me to, okay, now I do record video, I do record short videos, and then I would have all the tweets, and I could just talk about all of these tweets in a video, not necessarily referencing the tweet, but I would just talk about these tweets. Of course, then again, the problem is that I could not integrate the media if it's a format like this, where I don't overlay pictures and so on and so forth, due to me just being more time efficient if I just talk about things, instead of then spending 80% of my time in post-production. So the fifth thing is the question of access. How do I access all of these tweets? Because currently, or before, what I did is I had just my task manager, and then I had all of the different ideas, and I just, okay, let's make a video about this idea, check. Maybe let's do another take, maybe a slightly different on this idea, and then I just check it off, and then it's gone. On Twitter now it's different, and I also now have two different systems, so it's not as clear anymore. And clarity, when it comes to something like this, when it comes to recording video, I found is very important. Clarity of structure, because only the structure, a clear structure, allows me to actually turn something I have as an idea in my head into something that is some content of sort. Now, if I don't have a clear structure, and I could look at tweets, but I also could take a look at my task manager whenever I didn't write tweets, in order to not, again, get influenced and manipulated by Twitter, and then think about things I didn't want to think about, then the question is, how do I access these tweets? Ideally, I would somehow also integrate them into my timeline, in my task manager, basically. But I haven't found a solution yet. I also don't want to follow all of these accounts actually on Twitter, and then have a Twitter account of my own, because again, this would only improve the algorithm that is based on my preferences on Twitter, and therefore suck me into the platform more, which I don't want, because I don't want social media platforms that much in my life. And referencing maybe many people that already quit Twitter, not necessarily in response to Elon Musk taking over, but Sam Harris, for example, he just quit Twitter, and he says now he's totally fine without it. And he even spends... There seem to be a lot of upsides to not spending too much time arguing with other people online, and that's also what I sometimes, for example, yesterday, 2 days ago, I read something and I thought, okay, this person clearly doesn't understand something, and I could explain it, which of course is kind of egoistic, narcissistic, maybe trait of, oh, I know this better than this person, and then you get into this, maybe. And there are so many people that are just referencing Twitter as a source of negative inspiration for ideas, basically. And Sam Harris, for example, stated that it distorts his perception of reality and also of people he actually knows in reality. And for this reason, maybe it's not the best to put yourself into an environment that is Twitter. The same is, I think, kind of true for Medium. As I started posting on Medium, and I didn't find a browser extension that actually blocks all the suggestions and all of the homepages that actually constantly Medium tries to display to me, I actually found just reading them again and again and again. I read these headlines, 5 habits that change your life, and so on and so forth. And I don't want to read these. I just want to be concentrated on what I'm actually working on. Think of a restaurant worker, and the restaurant worker is bombarded every 30 seconds with something that has not anything to do with what he does in the restaurant. Like, think of a restaurant worker that has to, every 30 seconds, somebody comes in and tells him something completely different for 10 seconds. And or for 30 seconds, and he then has to find a way to stop this person, because it is not actually 30 seconds, but it's unconstrained. And then he has to find a way to stop this person. And then in 30 seconds, again, the next person comes in. But what he actually has to do is to serve the people at the restaurant. But then these people constantly come in and tell him. And that's kind of what Twitter, what all of these platforms are trying to do to you. They constantly try to tell you something or suggest this person that talks about this. So therefore, the question of access when recording video ideas is something that I haven't solved yet, and I ideally would solve it, because I record all of these channels kind of in one recording session, because I don't have that many ideas for one channel specifically, but much more in a given day. I have a few ideas about this, a few ideas about this, and then I just record all of these ideas combined in one session usually. So the question of access is still not something that I have clarified for me. I haven't found a good solution yet. In total, there are benefits to Twitter. The main benefit, I think, is the functionality, the bidirectional functionality. Another useful feature now Twitter has is views. You can actually see how many people viewed your thing. And therefore, you can then, theoretically at least, base your future decisions on what videos to actually turn, or what ideas to actually turn into a video on these tests, basically, you do on Twitter. And another big benefit, obviously, is that it takes not that much time, at least directly. But in the long term, I would argue, writing something up on Twitter compared to something in your task manager actually takes a lot more time, because it takes time away from your thoughts. If your thought is 100% and then you post on Twitter instead of just recording the idea in your task manager or in a note app, then you replace part of your mental feed with what is suggested to you on Twitter. I think the same is true for having friends in your life that also then influence partially what you are thinking. But the same is also true for having something like Twitter in your life. And as I began to blog on Medium, or at least transfer all of my blog posts on Medium, and also write my post on Twitter, or my tweets on Twitter, I found myself just, oh yeah, I could type something else, and then I type something else, and then I type something else, and then it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I want to type something else, but I have to go to bed. And so this fairly easily, I would say, distorts what you actually want to do. Because what I want to do is not write tweets, but actually make videos, because I think that's the most useful thing I can currently do. Even though it has the big risk of me having my face connected to it, there just currently is not a good software solution, or a solution that does not require me spending 80–90% of my time in the backend and just recording audio maybe, and then overlaying something or having some animation. Of course, I could use a mask of some sort, but then I could not use features like this here. And it just makes it more complicated, I would say. And also people just like to see a face, I would say. Not I would say, but that is what seems to be not evident, but that is maybe something I also want to see. If I use myself as a reference point or a proxy, then I want to see somebody who is going through something on a list, for example, who is telling me something about himself, about something else. And I think it just works kind of because we are kind of human, and therefore, and so on and so forth. I don't want to go into this topic now. It also doesn't make sense to go further into this topic. In total, I think I need to get off of Twitter. I mean, it is nice, and it also would be nice to actually post things on Twitter. But eventually, if Twitter actually turns into TikTok, or at least has a similar feature to TikTok and maybe also to YouTube, and becomes the one X app Elon Musk tells us about, then eventually I will also post my videos on there. And if I post my videos on there, and I try to tweet on there, then, I mean, why not just post the videos already? Because the videos are the thing that doesn't require me to spend time on Twitter, but only to spend time in the backend posting these videos and scheduling these videos. And therefore Twitter would just be another platform I could actually post my videos to. I already could post them, theoretically, and you can already post, I think, up to 40 minutes. But sometimes on a video like this, I exceed the 40 minutes, and therefore I cannot post all of my videos, all of the long videos. Maybe I should already try to test the short videos on Twitter, but currently I'm not. Why? Because either I do something or I don't. And if I just do a few videos, then I would only select the better videos, and that's something that then I would have to manage. Okay, on Twitter these videos are present, on this video is only on this platform, and having all of the videos either or none of the videos is just a much easier decision than okay, I make a new platform and then I throw out all the content that is bad anyway, and then I transfer only the good one, and then I change this like 5 minutes later if I then go to the next platform and post it, and so on and so forth. In summary, you probably should avoid Twitter because of the influence, because of the pollution and manipulation. The functionality is kind of nice, but not you, but I'm speaking to you as a proxy for actually me, obviously, partially. Then I probably would be better off making accounts on Buffer and buffering my tweets and not posting them directly on Twitter, therefore also getting rid of the functionality of Twitter, which is kind of unique, but also incentivizes you just to constantly reach out to people, which also can be nice, and maybe you can reach out to people and broaden your social network. But I think it's just a bad incentive to try to speak to Arnold Schwarzenegger on Twitter, for example, and try to get him to react. Even though I already did something similar, not to Arnold Schwarzenegger, but to people I admire online, and maybe, therefore, don't post on Twitter. At least don't tweet on Twitter, speaking to myself.